Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Slayatory Thursday. This week, we're doing whatever we want, and we're going to fill in this template with some resin, and it's going to be perfect. I actually did one of these a couple of years ago, and I made some missteps along the way, so I wanted to try and do it again and see if we can make it better. So this is what I did a couple of years ago, and it's super pretty if you ignore the fact that the mirror itself is clouded. So this is a different template. It's the same style. It comes from Pour Away Fluid Arts, and they're located in the UK. They have tons of these different templates. I actually have quite a few that I've wanted to put together, and I just haven't had a chance. They have lamps and ornaments, and I think they have keychains, just a bunch of different things. And just you can do anything you want with them. I personally like to put these on mirrors, like square mirrors, because I just think it's a really pretty effect. But you can honestly do whatever makes you happy. So let's talk about a few things that I learned the first time that I did this. The way I did it in the beginning was I took the template and I put resin down on top of the mirror, and then I put the template on top of that resin, which was great from the perspective that it would create a good seal. The template would be stuck down to the mirror with the resin, and so I wasn't going to have to worry about any of the resin leaking out because it was already firmly adhered to the mirror. All was well. The problem with that was it turned it cloudy and kind of ruined it a little bit, to be honest. So this time I'm going to do it differently. It's going to be a little bit more finicky, but I think in the end it'll be worth it. So let's get started. I have a very large roll of the world's worst transfer tape. Absolutely terrible. Completely horrible. And look how huge it is. It cannot pick up vinyl no matter how many times I go over it, push it down, use the little, the little tool thingy that you scrape, the little scraper thing. No, forget it. It won't pick up vinyl. It just won't do it. It is just terrible. Okay, so I've decided to repurpose it. And so I am going to use this as the backing for this template. Is that the best thing to do? I'm not sure. Would it be better to use the resin tape? Not sure about that either. But we're going to give it a go and we're going to see what happens because this roll has to go away at some point and I don't know what else to do with it. I feel like I'm going to have to start making up projects just to use this stuff. So I basically just cut a sheet, not quite big enough for the template. Fantastic. Always the best at measuring and planning. Fine, no big deal if you do that. Just cut another piece and then just, put it just to make sure that every single piece is covered. And then it's really important that you make sure that it is very firmly adhered to your template. You don't want any of your resin to leak out. So definitely go over it again and again and again. Just if you have one of the little rollers, you can use that. You can just use your pencils. You can use a pencil, you can use your fingers, whatever makes you happy. Just make sure it's really firmly stuck down. Also, try not to get any wrinkles in it. As you can see at the bottom, you see there's a ton of wrinkles. That's not good. Don't do that. Make sure it's flat. Make sure there are no wrinkles in your paper. If I was going to do this again, I would 1,000,000,000% cut this into smaller strips instead of one big one. It's so much more difficult, in my opinion, to control the wrinkles in these larger pieces of transfer tape. So I would have definitely used smaller pieces just to make sure that there were no wrinkles and that everything was perfectly set up before I started. And I wrestled with whether I wanted to use regular epoxy on this or if I wanted to use UV resin, because let's face it, UV resin is far more expensive, but you also have more control over it. But at the same time, when you're curing UV resin, if it gets too hot, if you get too close to it with a lamp, it can cause bubbles in it. It can cause warping. So there's some trade-offs. But I was more worried about the epoxy leaking out. If I would have been thinking, if my brain would have been functional that day, I would have probably used my tabletop resin and just mix it up in small batches and then did it that way because it's super thick. It cures really fast. And that's probably what I would have done, but I didn't. So that's okay. We're going to go with UV resin and we'll just deal with all of the little drama pieces that come in with UV resin. I just put some UV resin in a cup and then I added the color that I want into the UV resin. Remember, with UV resin, you can't make it super opaque because if you do, it's very likely not going to cure unless you do super thin coats, and then that takes so much longer. So for me, I would rather have it more transparent, especially because I'm going to put it on a mirror, so it's going to be completely fine if it's a little bit lighter. Now, a little point to bring up is, regardless of whether you're using epoxy or UV resin, color matching is difficult. So I was using UV resin. With UV resin, you can mix up as much as you want, set it to the side. As long as it's not touching any type of UV light, it's going to stay liquid. It's not going to cure. So you can definitely mix up plenty and not have to worry about the color matching part. If you're using epoxy, depending on the work time of it, that can be a little bit more difficult. So that was one of the things that I had to try to keep in mind, was about how much am I going to need, and then try to mix up that amount. Sometimes I was a little short, sometimes I was a little over. On flowers and things like that, does that matter as much? No. But on the ribbons that are kind of going around the piece, I did want them to all be the same color. And there were some parts where I got it close, but it wasn't exactly perfect. So try to estimate as best you can and then add in that amount of color, whatever you're going to do, or measure how much color you're putting in, just to kind of get them as close as possible. Or maybe you don't care. You know what? Just do whatever makes you happy. I don't know why I'm going through all this. Do what makes you happy. Anyway, so what I'm doing is I'm going through and I'm doing section by section. So I'm doing, 2, 3, 4 inches, whatever. And then I'm coming back with my UV light and I'm just quick curing it for about 20-ish seconds. And that's just going to set the UV resin. I'm not getting it too close to it. I'm kind of keeping it elevated. I'm obviously keeping it away from my container because if you expose your container to it, it's going to cure. So I'm just putting my container off to the side when I'm curing it. But I cure it for about 20 seconds, just a fast cure. Is it fully cured? No. But I will come back and do that in, larger sections later. I just don't want to take a chance that it's going to leak out anywhere. And so by doing this quick cure, it's going to kind of solidify it into the template and it's not going to run out. And there are so many ways that you can get your resin into your template. I'm using a combination of a popsicle stick and a scribe or a pokey tool, whatever you call it, to kind of get it in. The spaces are so small in certain parts of the template. You can use a pipette, you can use a syringe if you have one. I struggle with the syringes. I do have some that are really small, but then it's so hard to get them cleaned out so that you can move on to your next color. I just find it easier to use a stick and to use the scribe just to kind of make my life easier, but you should do whatever makes you happy. I think that's the theme of the day. Do you? So I went around all of the edges. I did the border and then I did that ribbon in the middle. And so now I'm going to start working on my butterflies. So I found all the colors that I wanted to go into the particular butterfly. Words are so hard. And I just mixed them in tiny cups off to the side so that I had everything ready and that I could just go in and put my colors in as, however, like whatever made me happy. And I did take a long neck lighter and try to run it over every little section, because when you're putting the resin in, you're moving it around a lot. Whether it's your stick or your scribe or whatever, just making sure that it gets into all of those different places. You're creating bubbles every time you do that. So I did try to be cognizant of that, and I did try to burst those bubbles. I also, because I have those cups sitting on the left side, I took my lamp and I just put it on its side, so that way those UV rays are not actually reaching my cups, and I didn't have to worry about covering them with the box or moving them out of the way. Just by placing it on its side, that was enough to give it a quick cure and just to make sure that everything was going to stay exactly where I wanted it. And I'm just going to keep repeating this process over and over and over again until it's finished. And I'll come back to you periodically along the way. And, especially when I do something terrible that I shouldn't do, just to let you know, hey, don't do this. And here's what we're looking like about an hour in. It definitely takes a long time. I think it's beautiful. I love the colors, but there's definitely a lot that goes into this. So take your time, relax, put on an audiobook. Oh, is anybody listening to, I have to tell you, I've never been an audiobook person until like the past few years. But I've been listening to so many audiobooks. I'm currently listening to, does anybody listen to the Evan Warlow series? It's a series, it's from the UK, and so good. It's like police procedural. So good. Probably not realistic at all, but love it so much. Probably more the accent than anything else. But I digress. This butterfly took an hour, but it's so pretty. I love that pink. That pink is so good. And here's what it looks like. I don't know what happened to my white piece of paper that was behind this. It disappeared. Anyway, this is what we're looking like. Everything is colored in. I swear it took about 7 hours to do all of this. Now, someone else could have probably done it much better and much faster, but 7 hours. However, I think it was worth every single solitary second. So let's talk about a couple of things that I learned in this process. Number one, that transfer tape is evil. It is evil. There's no other word for it. Because let me tell you, that transfer tape stuck to the back of this like it was freaking 5-minute epoxy. It was ridiculous how much effort it took to get it off of the back. Also, it left a bunch of sticky residue. That happens sometimes with resin tape, things like that. But I felt like it left so much more sticky residue than if I had just used the resin tape, which honestly, in hindsight, I wish I would have. But it is hindsight. It is fine. It looks beautiful. I had a few places with some overspill, and in those places, I just took some snippers and just snipped it right off. Some of the cavities are just tiny, 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 and it's hard to not do that. And then, if you miss it and then you cure it, it's just kind of stuck there. So you can just snip it right off if you have any issues with that, and it's just fine. Just be careful not to accidentally snip your template, which I did not do. I came close to doing, but I didn't do it. Can we just talk about, even though it was so much drama, I think it looks so good. Now, ignore the ceiling of my space, and please ignore the light because, both are very distracting and not very attractive. I will take pictures outside when this is all said and done, but here's what we look like. I think that the colors are stunning. They're so vibrant, so pretty, so reflective. I think that it just is like this perfect encapsulation of tropical beauty. Maybe beauty is a better word. Okay, so now we have to glue this down, and we need to glue it down to our mirror. I do not want to use epoxy because that was a disaster the last time. So I decided this time we're going to go with E6000. So I took some E6000 and I just put it on just a scrap piece of plastic. I don't even know, that had a mold in it or something. And so I just put some E6000 on a scrap piece of plastic. And then I'm going to take and adhere, or I'm going to put that on the back of the template. That way we can adhere it down to the surface of the mirror. And I had this grandiose plan of using a micro brush to do it. And then that was going to take 8 billion hours. The glue was going to dry before I even got there. So I just, went in with a gloved hand and just did it that way. And it worked out, I think, probably so much better than using the micro brush anyway. And here's what we look like actually on the mirror base. I feel like it's relatively straight. It's relatively like in the right place. So that was a victory because measurements are hard. But then I decided, I was like, okay, well, we really need to push this down to make sure that it stays where it's supposed to and that the E6000 really does come into contact with every part of the mirror. With these templates, they're not always super flat, and that's probably more on me than anything else. But so I thought what I would do is I just took a piece of parchment paper, put it down on top of it. You could also use a silicone mat. And then I just put another mirror on top, and then I weighted it down with a bunch of bottles. And I left it that way for 24 hours just so that I knew that every piece of the template was going to be stuck down to the mirror.
I brought it outside to my very dirty patio. We're doing all sorts of landscaping, and there's dirt everywhere. Look at this mess. Carmies, you say hi? Yeah, such a good girl. Yes, you are. Yeah. So this is our pile of stuff that we are digging out of here. It's a hot mess, but we are so close to being finished. So there's that. Anyway, getting back to what's important. So here we have it. I think it turned out really cute. All in all, I love the colors. The colors are gorgeous. The glitter is perfect. So yeah, all in all, I have no complaints. Absolutely no complaints. Other than the fact it took a really long time. Yeah, I think she's cute.
And that's going to do it for this week. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thanks for hanging out in my very dirty, gross backyard that we are transforming into, I don't know, something less hideous. We're going to go with that. Come back next week and we're doing blooms. I can promise you that it will be an adventure. Let's go with that. There are so many people in this group who make the most beautiful blooms. I'm not one of them. So I promise you that it'll be something, but I will be here and I'm going to do it. Even though I did tell Beverly that I'm going to be sick that week, but you know what? I'm going to do it. We're going to make it happen and come hang out with me. And then you can make fun of the monstrosity that happens. Please also check out the other creators in the description box below. So many talented people, so many great ideas, flawless execution. I learned so much from everyone every single week. So please check them out as well. Come back in 2 weeks and I hope to see you then.